Good morning. It's a beautiful Easter Monday morning. It's a bank holiday, so we've all got that holiday feeling, and I'm in the compound at the back of my garage. This is a great space for me because it's fenced off. You can't see it from the main garden, and it's surrounded by this hedge also, so it means it's very sheltered. So I can let this place go a little bit untidy and it doesn't really matter. It's also a great space because it's got a shed, so I can put all my tender plants in there during the winter. And I can bring them out here into this sheltered area where they can harden off in the spring. I'm in the process of preparing for my next video, which is to make some hugelkultur bulk bag raised beds. And that's a bit of a mouthful. These are the bags that the gravel came in when I made my formal parterre. I always think it's a shame to just throw these away because they could be so useful. And what I've decided to do, I'm going to make some raised beds with them, but they're going to be raised beds with a difference. They're going to be hugelkultur raised beds. So these are the ingredients for my hugelkultur raised beds. I've got some logs, I've got some waste matter including brown and green material, and I've got a load of earth, the sods, which I cut up when I made my exotic border at the front of the house. And this old wooden door, which you can see here, which is from inside the house, is going to be transformed into a hedgehog house in my wildlife garden. But today's video is slightly more interesting because this morning, whilst I was in the compound, I was reminded of the fact that over here, hidden away in the hedgeway, behind where I've placed my ladder, there are a couple of Belfast sinks. And I just want to get them out and have a look at them and see if they're intact. And if they are intact, I'm going to think about what I'm going to do with them. And here they are, look, tucked away in the hedgerow. Before I come to them, look at this. This is what they call a mangle. This is another thing that was left in the garden. You could make a feature of it, but it's one of those things that they used to dry the washing on. They used to wash things in a great big tub called a dolly tub by plunging a wooden dolly into it, and when it was clean they used to wring it out and then push it through here and turn this handle here which rotated these two rollers, and the water was squeezed out of the washing. Quite different to modern times where we have automatic washing machines and tumble dryers. I'm keeping this here because I might use that in some kind of feature in the future. Who knows? Anyway, that can stay there where it's doing no harm whatsoever. Here are the two Belfast sinks, and I'm going to drag these out and have a look at them. Let's see what we've got, what to play with. They're quite heavy. And out they come. Well, it's completely intact, apart from a few chips on the edge here, which actually add to its character. So there's number one. Let's just lay that down on its bottom here. In a moment, I'm going to talk to you about what I'm going to do with these, or some thoughts I've got anyway. And here's the second one, slightly more shallow. And out it comes. Really quite heavy. I bet these are original and quite old. Let's put this one here. Again, completely intact. So I've got two Belfast sinks here. One large and deep, and one slightly more shallow. I'm going to look into why they had these shallow ones. There must be a reason why they made them slightly shallower than the deeper ones. Before I talk about these Belfast sinks, I'm going to have a look in this hole where they've come from to see if I can find any wildlife, because oftentimes places like that, inverted things with cavities in, is where wildlife will find a home. So let's just gently disturb the branches here and see if we've disturbed anything. Nothing immediately leaps out at me. I'm slightly disappointed. I was hoping to find maybe a newt or a frog or something in there, but all my garden is covered in weed fabric or weed deterrent. There's a piece of old carpet here. That's not a bad thing, because places like that do create an environment for wildlife, and I'm a big believer in wildlife in the garden because it adds to the whole ecosystem and the health of the garden. And in fact, I've just made a wildlife log pile and a wildlife hibernaculum, and I've just sown a wildflower meadow, and you can see those videos on my channel. There's nothing obvious here. I do know that there are newts in the area though, because one of my neighbours locally found one in her garden. Getting back to these Belfast sinks, well, this is a great find for me, and I'm actually quite excited about it. I half expected them to be broken as I pulled them out, cracked in half maybe, but in actual fact they're in great shape. They've got character, they've got chips, they're not perfect, in fact they're probably quite old. They've got drainage holes already. This is all part of the patina, which gives the object age. So now I've got something to think about. What am I going to do with these two wonderful Belfast sinks? I'll definitely do something in the garden with them. There's definitely at least one project to be had. Perhaps I'll block the drainage holes up and make them into a water feature. I can imagine a tiny little miniature lily in there with some reeds and the birds flying down and sitting on the edge and having a drink. Or maybe a mini kitchen herb garden outside the back door where it's handy for cooking, because this would be a great way of containing invasive mint plants. Possibly I will use them for Alpine gardens. Fill it full of gritty soil, put a selection of Alpine plants in and cover the top in grit. That might also look nice. I could elevate one on top of the other and let the water run through and have a little pump circulating the water, which will give me a lovely sound of water. And I do have a gardening friend over in Leek who's into all this abandoned stuff and rediscovering things and repurposing them and upcycling them. So possibly I'll ask him for some ideas. So it begs the question, what would you do with these two Belfast sinks that I've just discovered in the hedgerow? Share your ideas with me in the comments box below this video, and if you come up with something I like, I promise you I will adopt it and do a video on it. And don't forget, if you do want to know what happens to these, please do subscribe to my channel and hit the notifications bell. And hopefully see you soon for my Hugelkultur bulk bag raised beds video.